pleased to be presiding this afternoon as we wrap up our 2022 Mississippi Historical Society annual meeting. I'm Stephanie Rolfe. I'm president of the board of directors for the Mississippi Historical Society for just a few more minutes. And I will look forward to passing the gavel to Daphne Chamberlain very soon. But before we get to that, we want to really extend a special welcome to all of our award recipients today. It is such a pleasure to be in the company of such heroic efforts on the part of Mississippi history in the state, social justice in the state, and the consistent guidance to be better in this state. And we all will continue to advocate for that, I hope, as we depart this afternoon. So please continue to finish your lunch, and if you need to get a refill, we welcome you to do that in the next few minutes. As we move into our program, I do want to tell all of my colleagues that I've had the pleasure of spending some time with over the next couple of days, over the previous 2 days, I should say. What a pleasure it has been to share space with you, to talk scholarship with you, to learn more about Mississippi history with you. We've had some fabulous panels, especially for this last panel that looked at the local civil rights movement in Hattiesburg. So much to learn about the local preservation efforts that are going on here, and encourage everybody to consider going on some of the tours that have been arranged by Rebecca Torrey and others around Hattiesburg. So thank you for that. To get us started, I am going to welcome my colleague Daphne Chamberlain to the podium, who will be presenting the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Good afternoon. Words cannot begin to express how honored I am to present the Mississippi Historical Society's Lifetime Achievement Award for 2022. As a civil rights historian, it has been a privilege to sit at the feet of my elders, people who I met through the Veterans of the Mississippi Civil Rights Movement organization, people I had read about in John Ditmer's Local People, or people I had seen in the documentary series, Eyes on Fire. This year's recipient has worked her entire life advocating for others, whether it be for civil rights, voting rights, or for education. In addition, she, along with her children, two of them whom are here today, Betty and Dennis, have honored her husband's legacy. And she has honored her husband, Vernon Damer's memory with grace and humility. Today, we are proud to honor a Mississippi trailblazer, change maker, and history maker. And the recipient of the 2022 Lifetime Achievement Award for this year for the Mississippi Historical Society goes to Mrs. Ellie Damer.
You can go ahead.
very much for this award. I don't know how I deserve it, but I spent most of my life, spent most of my adult life working for civil rights. I have voter registration forms at my house. Whenever a person will come and fill them out and get them complete, I will take the form, put a stamp on it, and mail it myself. Most of these are working people, and sometimes they forget to put it in the mail or go by the courthouse, and they don't get a chance to vote. But I want everybody to vote. You don't want to change this maybe in Hattiesburg, you be able to vote. No longer do we have to go to the restaurant and they can't let food out the back door. Those fountains that had black, had color and white on, they disappeared overnight. Voting in Mississippi have kept us together. We're not what we ought to be, but we're so much better than who we were. And back to again, I'm not going to take it all the time.
Congratulations, Mrs. Taylor. Thank you so much for your contributions over a lifetime. I will now welcome the chair of our awards committee, Carter Burns, to continue with the awards distribution.
This year, I have the honor of being the chairman of the awards committee. And I want to thank the other members of the committee, LaShawn Brooks, Daphne Chamberlain, Jeff Rosenberg, and Marcus Ward for their outstanding work. We will begin with awards of merit. The awards of merit are presented to individuals or organizations for their outstanding archival, museum, programming, and preservation work. The committee has selected 13 awards of merit for this year. So the first award that we're going to give out is to Councilwoman Deborah Delgado of Hattiesburg for being the founder and director of the historic Mobile Street Renaissance Festival. The next award that we're going to give out goes to Glenda Funches of Hattiesburg for keeping civil rights history alive by leading the effort to erect 4 historical markers: Mount Zion Baptist Church, Vernon Damer Home, Reverend W.D. Ridgway, and P. versus Cox federal court case. The next award goes to Edwina Carpenter, who is unfortunately not able to be here with us today, but we'll get the award up to her. And she's receiving the award for modernizing the historical interpretation in her 23 years as director of the Civil War Museum about Bryce's Crossroads in Baldwin. The next award is going to Russell Deering, who's also not able to be here today. But his award is for researching and publishing the history of Hancock County. including early Hancock County, a few of her people, and some of their stories. Her next award goes to Elsa Martin for her work to restore and preserve the Greenland Danish American colony in Jackson County. She saved this historic site where Danish families settled on the Gulf Coast. Our next award goes to Friends of Raymond for working with the American Battlefield Trust to secure almost 44 acres, and Raymond last year is a substantial addition to the total preserved land at the site of the Battle of Raymond in 1863. Accepting for Friends of Raymond are Parker Hills, Mickey Roth, and Eric Bobo. Our next award goes to the Institute of Southern Jewish Life in Jackson for their virtual vacation digital program covering Southern Jewish history, including episodes on Natchez, in which I participated, the Delta, and Mississippi businesses and landmarks. Accepting for the ISJL is Nora Katz. Our next award of merit goes to the Historical Society of Gulfport for digitizing the Ralph Beatty Architectural Collection at the Gulfport Museum of History's initial entry in the Mississippi Digital Library. Accepting for the Historical Society of Gulfport is Betty Shaw. The next award of merit goes to the Library of Hattiesburg, Pennell, and Forest County for their excellent virtual programming featuring history during the pandemic and for being featured on CBS this morning. Let's watch a short clip from CBS.
A public library is supposed to be just that, open and available to all residents of a community. But that wasn't always the case. More than a half century ago, a young Mississippi girl and her friends applied for library cards, but were rejected on account of their race. The sting of that incident never faded for one woman, but now it's been appeased by an unexpected letter.
In 1964 Mississippi, 15-year-old Terry Mojgani spent her summers learning. It was Freedom Summer, and racial tensions were high. Even young children were engaged in the movement.
This was 1964. It was Mississippi Freedom Summer, where they decided that there would be voter registration drives. This is kind of the height almost of the civil rights movement in the 60s. And it was decided that there should be a children's program of freedom schools in order to educate children also about Black history.
After the Civil Rights Act of 1964 passed, Mojgani and 5 classmates in Hattiesburg wanted to test their newfound liberties.
We wanted to do something that was important. So we decided to go to the library
Sandra Addicks, a white teacher, escorted her 6 students to the library, but they were all denied library cards and told to leave. Feeling dejected, they went for lunch at a Crest lunch counter where Sandra would be denied service.
So, their policy apparently was that because of the law, they had to serve us now. But they had been instructed to not serve whites in the presence of blacks.
Addicks sued Crest, and the case was eventually heard by the U.S. Supreme Court, ruling in her favor. Even with that legal victory, Mojgani still thought about the library card she never received. 56 years later, Mojgani's son sent a letter to the library informing them of the incident. The library replied,
Harry Mojgani, Miss Mojgani, I'm so honored to be able to provide to you a library card for the library of Hattiesburg, Pelham, Forest County. We had registered you under Carolyn Moncure, the name that should have been on the card issued to you in 1964.
The current library director, Sean Farrell, was very happy he could be a part of this healing moment.
I feel a real sorrow that people were denied those very basic, everyday rights that other people basically took for granted.
Mojgani's passion for reading wasn't deterred by not getting her first library card. She became a middle school, high school, and university librarian. She even co-owned a children's bookstore and earned a librarian degree in her 40s.
As I said to the last person that hired me to work in a library, but I think that I also wanted to prove that all librarians weren't mean, because that's certainly how I saw that person in the Hattiesburg Library. You know, it's part of the image that goes with librarians, and I wanted to dispel that.
Certainly did. Well, Terry tells us she was denied a library card on August 14, 1964. And even though her sons received the letter from the library director in July, they waited until August 14, 2020 to give it to her. So it would be 56 years ago to the day after that incident.
Kind of like their old name is on the card she should have gotten.
It was amazing the impact that had on her to watch what she did with the rest of her life and how that was just a central theme with it.
How she immediately went back to that moment and how she felt and how it meant so much to her. It just, you don't know the impact of denial.
And when you admit that it was wrong later, what that can mean to someone too.
Yeah.
Our next award goes to the African American Military History Museum in Hattiesburg for recognizing and celebrating the service and sacrifice of the African American soldier through programs and exhibits. The museum also preserves the only remaining USO club constructed in 1942 specifically for African American soldiers. Director LaToya Norman is here to accept the award. Our next award goes to the Mississippi Armed Forces Museum at Camp Shelby for serving as the military history museum for the state of Mississippi. The museum honors the service and sacrifice of Mississippi veterans from all military branches. Accepting the award is the museum's director, Tommy Law. Our next award goes to Visit Hattiesburg for creating the self-guided Freedom Summer Driving Tour, which promotes and celebrates local civil rights history. Marlo Dorsey, Executive Director, CEO of Visit Hattiesburg, is here to accept the award. award of merit goes to the Admission Project for collecting first-hand accounts of segregation academy experience in Mississippi and for examining systemic racism in public and private schools in the 1970s. Project leader Ellen Ann Fentress is here to accept this award. That completes our awards of merit. What great work these individuals and organizations are doing for our state. Let's give them all one more round of applause. Our next award is for the Outstanding Local Historical Society. The winner from Carthage is the Dancing Rabbit Genealogy and Historical Society. Susie Johnson, president of the Dancing Rabbit Genealogy and Historical Society, and other club members are here to accept this award. The final award that I will present is the Excellence in History Award. This year is the first time that we've given this award. We combined the Atkinson Award and the Hilliard Oral History Award into one big award for a very significant project. The Excellence in History Award is given as merited in recognition of an outstanding publication, documentary, podcast, or project contributing to the knowledge of Mississippi history. I'm pleased to announce that the first ever Excellence in History Award is presented to the Civil War and Reconstruction Governors of Mississippi project. This project is a joint effort between the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, the Mississippi Digital Library, and the History Program at the University of Southern Mississippi. They are digitizing, transcribing, and annotating the nearly 20,000 documents in the state's governance collections for the Civil War era and after. Here to accept the award is USM Professor Dr. Susanna Young.
Everybody forgive me, these are not, I can't do this without a team, so I wanted as much of a team here as possible.
Don't get a little closer. Not like you know each other.
Here.
Thank you, Carter, for your leadership, and to all of the awards committee members for your good work this year. I will now introduce Rebecca Torrey, who will be distributing the Teacher of the Year award.
Hello. First, I'd like to thank my fellow committee members, Al Wheat and Missy Jones, for their help with this committee. The Teacher of the Year award this year goes to Mr. Stephen White, who's been teaching for 25 years in the public school system in Mississippi. Since 2015, he's been teaching at Pearl High School, where he teaches honors geography, history, and Mississippi studies. While in that position, he has won a host of awards, including the 2019 Pearl High School Teacher of the Year, Mississippi Outstanding Social Studies Educator of the Year in 2015, 2015, 2016, and most recently, the 2021 History Teacher of the Year for Mississippi, as named by the Gilder Lehrman Institute for American History. In addition to teaching at Pearl High School, he's taught at Morton High School in Morton, Mississippi, the Rosa Scott School in Madison, Madison Central High School, and Wingfield High School. In addition to a host of service roles within each school, he has also served our state as the Mississippi Council for Social Studies President from 2007 to 2008, and as interim president from 2013 to 2014, and as assistant director of Mississippi Council for Social Studies from 2014 to 2019. It is for all of these reasons and many more that we have awarded Mr. Stephen White the 2022 Mississippi Historical Society Teacher of the Year Award.
So we're bringing this meeting to a close, and what a great one it has been. I'm also bringing my service as president to a close, and I'm grateful for that, and for my successor, who will outdo me for sure. But as we finish up, I want to recognize that there's never been a more critical time for the work that was just honored. And it strikes me as sweetly ironic in some ways that the Historical Society itself has been responsible for many of the injustices that have been exacted in this state. I'm so proud of how far we have come, and including all of the history that has mapped this state over the years. And I'm so proud of the work that continues to be done. It wasn't that long ago that the Historical Society itself was for writing and a celebration of that history to the exclusion of everything else. This meeting demonstrates better than anything the commitment we have in this room to an accurate telling of history. With all of the stories that comprise this state, where we have been, how far we've come, how far we still have to go, is the way forward. And I encourage all of us, scholars, preservationists, public historians, social justice heroes, public officials, policymakers, citizens, everyone who is in this room and all of the networks that you are connected to, do not stop doing what you're doing. We have to do it. We cannot be silenced, and we owe future generations a consistent commitment to history and to the way that that history places us and locates us in the moment that we are today. So thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for continuing to invest. Our Lifetime Achievement Award today, Mrs. Damer, is the highest honor for us to give to you and to honor all of the work that you and your family have contributed to Mississippi. We make choices every day to stay here. And when we stay here, we make a choice to invest in the betterment of this state. And I hope that you will join me in renewing that commitment as we dismiss today, and that we will continue to encourage our colleagues and our friends and our families to also be committed to that. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Dr. Chamberlain, it's time. Please join me here to welcome you into the presidency. This is yours. I will now turn it over to Dr. Daphne Chamberlain, who is the president of the Mississippi Historical Society.
I'm going to just take this moment of privilege to give a few remarks before I call Stephanie back up, because we do want to thank her for her service as president of the Mississippi Historical Society. She's been a tremendous friend who I will continue to call on for projects. But just as I think about my role with the Mississippi Historical Society, I would be remiss to even bring up the fact that it's a pleasure to stand before you as president of this wonderful organization. And it was 15 years ago when I stood here as a graduate student in Jackson, Mississippi, presenting on children's activism in the civil rights movement. And the theme at that time was telling Mississippi stories. Dr. John Marslett was president of the society, and it was one of the best experiences I had as a graduate student to be able to share that particular story of young people's activism in Jackson, Mississippi. But 15 years later, here we are, and here I stand in a very different capacity. And I would not be here without you all's confidence, or without Elizabeth Payne, Stephanie, who of course contacted me to see if I would be interested in serving on the board. So I have to give reference to Dr. Elizabeth Payne, one of my former professors from the University of Mississippi. Now, each of us in this historic place, we are here at the right time. Of course, each of us has a historic, a Mississippi story. And the beautiful thing about the Mississippi Historical Society is that it brings together an increasingly diverse group of people with a common passion for learning, writing, and telling Mississippi stories. And one American poet offered one of the most profound articulations of what history means. He said, history cannot give us a program for the future, but it can give us a fuller understanding of ourselves and our common humanity so that we can better face the future. So the work that we do as academicians, archivists, museum curators, documentarians, independent scholars, and even just plain lovers of history gives us a golden opportunity to provide this fuller understanding of ourselves, but also a fuller understanding of Mississippi. I'm grateful for my predecessors, Stephanie Roth, and others I have met here in person. Marshall Bennett, Paige Ogden, and also others who may be present who I didn't have an opportunity to meet since the program started. But I must also say that I'm grateful to the leadership role women have played in this organization, specifically lifting up Albertine Harrison, Jean Luckett, and Martin Swain, all of whom I respect dearly. And in his absence, I must send my warmest regards to Elder Hilliard, whom I consider to be the walking encyclopedia of Mississippi history. And thanks to each of you for entrusting me with this important role. And I look forward to serving, working with you all, and also seeing you in 2023, March 2nd and 3rd in Jackson for the next annual meeting. But before we conclude, I have to bring back up my friend Stephanie Roth, so we can thank her for her service and present her with this plaque. Thank you again. So before we conclude this year's meeting, please consider touring the local area sites that have been mentioned throughout the day. Those sites include the African American Military Museum across the street, the Mississippi Armed Forces Museum at Camp Shelby, a guided tour of downtown Hattiesburg, and a self-guided Freedom Summer Driving Tour. And all of those tours will be available immediately after this program. Thank you all for joining us for this year's annual meeting, and safe travels to each of you. And the 2022 annual meeting of the Mississippi Historical Society is now